Many families have skeletons in their closets, where some of the secrets are harmless and small, whilst others are shameful or downright sinister. These dark secrets can be a burden on the family where they live, in fear of them being discovered. The following families have so many skeletons in their closet that it is literally overflowing with guilt. These are 4 chilling family secrets that had the power to ruin the family's reputation, where in the end, the truth was finally discovered. Number 4. The wife. Fred Rinkel was Jewish and was born in Germany at a particularly violent period in German history. Rinkel lived under the Nazi regime and was in constant threat of being imprisoned or tortured or worse. He and his brother managed to escape the horror, but unfortunately his parents were not so lucky and died in the Holocaust. In an effort to shake off his nightmare, he moved to the United States to begin a new life. He was a regular at his local synagogue and reaffirmed his identity as a member of a prominent Jewish organisation. Given his fearful past back in Germany, it would have been unthinkable for Rinkel to marry a former concentration camp guard, but without realising it, that is exactly what he did by marrying Elfriede Hoth in 1962, not knowing that she was formerly a dog handler at the Ravensbrück concentration camp. She had spent 10 months at the camp as a prison guard, where in 1945, when Alfred Hith worked there, thousands of prisoners were killed by order of the SS in gas chambers. When the camps were finally liberated, Hoth managed to disappear. She later relocated to America herself, to San Francisco. There she met Fred Rinkel, where they fell in love. She never told anyone about her job as a prison guard, keeping it a secret even from her own brother, who'd been a German soldier. She had explained in an interview that you never talked about things like that, ever. She embraced her husband's Judaism and attended a synagogue with him and even gave money to various Jewish charities. After the death of her husband, her past would finally catch up with her. In 2006, United States Justice Department's Office of Special Investigations found out about Alfred Rinkel's dark history. She confessed to working at the Ravensbrück camp, but explained that she did it out of a need for money rather than to satisfy a hatred of Jews. At the age of 84, and despite her pleas for clemency, she became the first woman prosecuted by the Office of Special Investigations and was deported back to Germany. Number 3. The Pilgrim. In 2002, Robert Hale, known as Papa Pilgrim, gained nationwide attention when he challenged the Federal Land Act by driving a bulldozer through 30 miles of a national park. The stunt was in response to legislation that allowed for drivers to use parts of the government-owned land where roads had once stood. This act of defiance made him a golden boy to people against land use regulations. After this act, the public learned more about Hale and his lifestyle. He was unshaven, despised television, and had 15 children with biblical names. The family appeared to live simple, happy lives, learning about wilderness survival and being kind to others, and were extremely religious. No one would have guessed that behind this gentle guise of purity was a monster that serially abused his family. Hale would whip his boys when they got out of line, and made his wife secure their hands and gag them with a cloth if they cried out. As his oldest daughter matured, this man known as Papa Pilgrim would begin to sexually prey on her. He claimed that the Bible allowed for incest between a father and one special daughter. As the children grew older, they would learn how normal families actually lived and realised what kind of monster their father was. The oldest girl fled the family in 2005, escaping from her oppressive father on a snow machine. She found refuge with the state troopers. In court, Robert Hale was confronted with his crimes, but did not put up a fight. Instead, he pleaded no contest to the charges and never once repented for his actions. He remained unapologetic until the very end, dying in prison in 2008. Number 2. The couple. Gerald and Alice Uden were the model of respectability to those that knew them. They were regular churchgoers, spending their twilight years together in relative solitude. One of their neighbours described them by saying, "They're the kind of neighbours you leaned over the fence and talked about your chickens with." One thing the Udens never discussed with their neighbours were the people they had murdered in their previous life. Before they had met each other, Alice and Gerald were married to other people. Alice Uden was married in 1974 to a man called Robert Holtz, and they had a daughter. Uden attempted to divorce Holtz after less than a year, but no one could find him. In 1980, Gerald Uden, who'd murdered his ex-wife and the 2 children she'd had in a previous marriage, had mysteriously disappeared. Alice and Gerald would eventually meet, marry, and raise children of their own. By the time the truth came out, the Udens were in their 70s. One of Alice's own children turned her into the police, decades after the disappearance of Ronald Holtz. Her son Todd claimed Alice had admitted to shooting her then husband and hiding the body in a gold mine. As investigators began collecting evidence about Alice, they looked into Gerald's own questionable past. Believing that the jig was finally up, Gerald confessed to killing his ex-wife and stepchildren using a rifle that his wife had given him as a present. Alice attempted to justify her actions by changing her story she originally told her son, claiming that she had shot Robert Holtz because he was about to attack their daughter. Alice Uden was found guilty of manslaughter. Number 1. The Favour. No one had ever seen or heard from Joseph Tarracone for almost 30 years. The Washington resident disappeared into thin air in 1978 after visiting his daughter in Hawaii. Everyone that knew Tarracone, including his 7 children, had no idea what had happened to him. However, Joseph Tarracone's disappearance was no mystery to Renee Curtis and her brother, Nicholas Notaro. Tarracone had been romantically involved with Renee Curtis before he went missing. However, Curtis grew weary of him and, according to investigators, recruited her brother to remove her little problem. Notaro accepted and killed Tarracone with 2 shots to the head. He and Curtis disposed of the body by hacking it to pieces with a chainsaw and burying the remains. They managed to hide their dark secret for almost 3 decades before the truth came to light in 2007. While Curtis's old home was being torn down, construction workers came across the remains of Tarracone. Their vicious act had come to light when Notaro, who had recently committed another murder, this time his own wife, confessed to killing and dismembering Tarracone. Notaro was sentenced to life in prison. Curtis confessed to helping dispose of the body, but denied any involvement with the actual planning or execution of the murder. However, the judge and jury were unconvinced, especially by her indifference when describing Tarracone's gory death, and she also received a life sentence.